There was a man who could not forget anything. Not good memory. Not never forgets a face. Everything. Every word of every conversation. What you wore the day he met you. A random list of numbers he saw 15 years ago, recited back perfectly in order. It sounds like a superpower. It was closer to a curse. And the story of how it destroyed his life quietly rewrote everything scientists thought they knew about the human mind. His name was Solomon Shereshevsky, and he had no idea anything was unusual about him until one morning in the 1920s, when his newspaper editor got annoyed. Shereshevsky was a journalist in Moscow. In editorial meetings, while everyone else scribbled notes, he just sat there. His editor finally snapped and asked why he never wrote anything down. Confused, Shereshevsky repeated the entire meeting back, word for word. Every assignment, every address, every name. The room went quiet, because he genuinely thought everyone could do this. He assumed this was just what it was like to have a mind. His editor sent him to a young psychologist named Alexander Luria. Luria started testing him, expecting to find the limits of his memory. He never found them. He gave Shereshevsky a list of 70 numbers. He read them back, forwards and backwards. He gave him long strings of nonsense syllables, mathematical formulas, poems in languages he didn't speak. Shereshevsky absorbed all of it in minutes. Then Luria did the thing that made this a 30-year study instead of an afternoon. He brought him back years later and asked him to recall the lists. And he could. 15 years on, no warning, Shereshevsky reproduced them exactly. Luria wrote that he simply had to admit the man's memory had no clear limit at all. So why was this a curse? To understand that, you have to understand how he was remembering. Because it wasn't normal memory turned up loud. It was something stranger. Shereshevsky had an extreme form of synesthesia, where his senses were wired together. Not one crossed wire. 5. Every sound had a color. Every word had a taste, a texture, a weight. When he heard a tone, he saw a puff of color. When someone spoke, the voice might taste like brine, or feel rough against his skin. Numbers weren't symbols to him. They were people. He said the number 1 was a proud, well-built man. 2. A high-spirited woman. 6. A man with a swollen foot. 8. A very stout woman. To memorize a number, he just watched the little scene it made. That's how he remembered everything. Every piece of information detonated into a flood of sights, tastes, and textures so vivid it physically printed itself into his mind. He didn't memorize the world. He couldn't help absorbing it. And here's where the gift turns. He couldn't forget. Ever. Most of us think forgetting is a failure of the brain. For Shereshevsky, forgetting was the thing he desperately needed and could not do. The images piled up. Old conversations surfaced uninvited. He tried writing things down on paper and burning them, watching the words turn to ash, hoping that if the paper was gone the memory might go with it. It didn't work. But the cruelest part wasn't the volume. It was what the synesthesia did to his thinking. He could not understand abstract ideas. Every word triggered a picture so intense it hijacked his attention. Reading was almost impossible. A single sentence would explode into vivid images that contradicted each other, and he'd lose the meaning entirely. Luria wrote that he couldn't read poetry or fiction, because each phrase bloomed into visualizations that buried the point. Metaphors broke him. Figurative language was a wall, and the example that stays with you. His own wife had to explain to him what the word nothing meant. He couldn't picture nothing, so he couldn't grasp it. Think about what that means. To think in the abstract, to generalize, to form a concept, your brain has to throw away detail. Dog, as an idea, only works because you've discarded every specific dog you've ever seen. Shereshevsky couldn't discard anything. Every dog was still there, vivid and separate. He was drowning in details that the rest of us are built to delete. He had average intelligence. But he couldn't hold a normal job because the world overwhelmed him. Asking a vendor for ice cream could stop him cold. The words spilling into tastes and images until the simple transaction fell apart. Eventually, he gave up journalism and became a professional mnemonist, performing memory feats on stage for money. The unforgettable mind became a circus act. He never really enjoyed it. In his later years, when burning paper still didn't quiet the noise, he turned to alcohol. He died in 1958, and this is the part that flips everything. We treat forgetting as the brain breaking down. The senior moment, the lost name, the thing on the tip of your tongue. We spend money and worry trying to remember more. But Shereshevsky is the proof of the opposite. Forgetting isn't a bug in human memory. It's one of its most important features. Forgetting is how your brain decides what matters. Clears the noise so the signal survives. It lets you walk past 1,000 details and keep only the few you'll ever need. It's the editing that turns raw experience into something you can actually think with. A mind that keeps everything can't think at all. Can only store. The thing we complain about, the leaky, lossy, imperfect memory, is the thing that lets you understand the world instead of just recording it. So the next time a name slips away, or you can't remember where you left your keys, you don't have a broken mind. You have the one thing Solomon Shereshevsky spent his whole life trying and failing to do. You can forget.